Hi, welcome to the BelieveAfrica podcast, where we have conversations that inspire, creating minds that revolutionize. I am your host, Cyril Awere, and we have episode 1 on the topic of mindset matters. Our guest with us today is Kofi Anku. He is the partner of Ayi Mensah Park. Kofi is going to share with us his insights on how a mindset has helped him to make the right business and personal decisions. Welcome, Kofi.
Cyril, it's a joy to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really a pleasure to have you here featuring on our first episode. How are you feeling, by the way, Kofi?
Well, it's great to connect in Ghana here for the first time, I think.
It is indeed, isn't it? It's the first time
Met up in the UK a couple of times.
Yes, you're right, actually. Yeah, it's the first time meeting on Ghana soil. And you're looking very fresh.
Thank you.
I think you're looking better than when I saw you in London.
that sounds about right.
Awesome. So, Kofi, yes, for the benefit of our listeners, you tell us more about yourself and what is it that gave you the spark to develop this interest in mindset? Yeah.
Sure. So 2 questions. Just to give some background, I have been living and working in Ghana for the last 20 years.
Okay.
I've been involved in a lot of real estate developments.
Yes.
So I'm a real estate developer. Have an interest in agriculture as well.
Yep.
Not sure if we've spoken much about that.
Not about the agriculture bit. That's good to hear.
I actually have a 5,000 square meter greenhouse for
Super.
tomato production in Ibury.
Okay.
But I'm always trying to sell houses.
Yes, I know. This is what I'm doing.
Tomatoes sell themselves.
Yes.
So I don't actually, I'm usually banging on the housing story.
Yes.
So I partnered with a U.S. firm, I think it was probably about 8 years ago. And we built a development called Ayi Mensah Park.
Yep.
Which is a 200-unit townhouse development at scale with a 2-acre park in the center.
Yes.
So that has set a new standard.
Oh, I so love the park in the middle, by the way.
Thank you.
It's very different from other development projects. Yeah.
Yeah, so really pleased with how that turned out. And then we did a different project after that, which was more for an affordable housing market segment. Yeah. But also focusing again on the diaspora market.
Okay.
So instead of like a $200,000 price point, we came all the way down to a $50,000 price point.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like
that's
a good move. And that's been successful, I'm guessing?
Yeah, we've actually just, we're wrapping up that development now. And we've built about 48 units.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good. That's a big positive contribution, I'm sure, to Ghanaian, general looking for shelter.
Yeah, I think we're showing people a different way.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that they're emulators, that we also inspire people to develop more product in that price point. And we also threw in a lot of green features with that development.
Yes.
So you've got solar panels that come standard with the units.
Right.
There's a biodigester, community water supply.
Right. Awesome.
Insulation in the walls and in the roof. So
really setting the standards, right, for hopefully the pioneers of how property development wants to look like.
That's the
for
plan.
Other developers. Yeah, that's really awesome. But I think so. I see you not just as a developer. I see you as a people connector. Okay, so I think this is also worth mentioning. I think you have been quite instrumental in my journey personally of helping to create this BelieveAfrica podcast. Connected me with a really good coach in the podcast space, Adrian. who has been very, very supportive. Adrian then connected me to the Africa Global Radio. So we see the power of networking, right? And it's really, I think it's commendable how you are helping all of us to do that. I see when I see you somewhere, someone's always talking about how you helped to connect them to someone.
Well, I've always been the beneficiary of the same thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So it comes very natural.
Yeah.
And if you have a long view, those investments, that you reap such benefits.
Indeed, yes.
Personally, it's just a wonderful environment when you can run into people for whom you did something for, and they're grateful.
Reciprocate.
And they can reciprocate and also help spread the word as to what I'm working on. And so I'm and again, I think it comes to a conversation we were having before about purpose and meaning. So I'm always interested in building a team. And to do that, you've got to play the role. You've got to, sometimes it's the other person has the goal, you give them the assist.
Indeed, no, that's it's very, very commendable. So I think it's quite inspiring, and I'm learning from that too, to find ways of positioning myself so I can help people to connect with each other. We need to do more of that, not just in Ghana, but across Africa, which can also help with, African development. So let's touch on this topic about mindset, of course, which is why we're here. What would you say? I mean, how would you define mindset? For the benefit of our listeners.
Sure.
What is the difference between? So we generally say the two different types of mindsets is fixed and growth mindset, right? From your perspective, how would you outline these two different mindsets?
Okay. Well, I'll take a step back. So I operate in different segments.
Okay.
Different sectors, different industries. And to do that, I try and take things that are complicated and make them very simple.
I like that too.
So for me, mindset is the same as attitude.
Yes. Right. Okay.
And how do you look at the world? Right. So with a growth mindset, you view your abilities in a given space as fluid, right, and dynamic. They can improve.
Yes.
Right. Fixed mindset is I am good at math, right, which can be dangerous.
Yes.
It can be true,
right.
But what happens when that assumption is tested to the point where if you think that your talents are fixed, and you get to a level. And you start failing your exams.
Yes.
Right? Then the feeling is, well, I am not good at math. This has just revealed this truth about me, right, that I didn't know.
Yes.
Right? And, well, maybe I need to find something else that I'm good at because it's clearly not this.
Right?
But true. Somebody with a growth mindset says, not so much that I'm good at math. I work hard in this subject. Right? So when they fail, that is not revealing some unchanging truth about them.
No, yes.
But shows an area that they can develop.
Right.
Well, maybe I need more time to master this. Maybe I need a different set of coaches to improve in this area.
Yes. So I guess what you're saying is to be thinking more about the how, isn't it? When maybe at the initial thoughts, you say to yourself, something can't be done. Instead of saying that it can't be done, you ask yourself, how can it be done, I guess.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, where you're looking for solutions. And you also understand that there's growth that happens. It's about almost forgiving yourself for making mistakes.
Yes.
And I think, when I started in agriculture, I didn't have a background in agriculture.
Okay.
So it allows you to experiment. Right? Actually, even in business. I think a lot of folks that come, you've got an MBA from Harvard.
Yes.
Well, you've just spent $100,000 on your business education. Right? So if your first business is a failure, that might be a problem. Whereas when you're, particularly in an environment like Ghana, where there's so much opportunity, right? It's not a ton of red tape.
No, yes.
It's not very difficult. If you've got a bit of money to spend on a project, you can come here and build a house.
Yes.
Right? You sell that house and you build two more, and all of a sudden you're a developer. Right? You don't need a professional license to take on that identity and run with it.
Yeah. So it's really having, as you said, experimenting, isn't it? Being prepared to experiment. I think sometimes we're a bit too risk averse, so we don't want to make those. We don't want to experiment because we think it's going to cost us, and we're just going to lose it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the cost is often to the identity, right? So if you've got a fixed mindset and you see yourself as X, then you're vulnerable. That identity that you've adopted or embraced is vulnerable to that failure.
Yes.
Whereas for most entrepreneurs, you have to develop a thick skin for failure, right? And fail quickly so that you can take those learnings and apply them to increase the probability of success.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, do you think that as a society, from your observation, because you've been in Ghana for quite some time, where do you think that and generally speaking, our mindset is? Do you think it's more in the growth space or more in the fixed space?
I'll take a step back from the question. I think that there's a huge amount of positivity in Ghana. I think generally people look at things from a positive perspective.
Yes, we are generally positive, aren't we? I sometimes, I guess it depends who you ask the question. Because it's interesting, I had a conversation with a friend just 2 days ago, asking about prospects for Ghana and, do we think that we can develop, into the future? And he was very firm in saying that, no, he doesn't think so. Which came to me as a surprise, actually, and I kept asking him, do you think that is because maybe we haven't adopted the necessary approaches, which is why you think this way? Do you think that if we were to do things in a particular way, then that could materialize? Do you think that that's possible? And then he was quiet for a few seconds and thought, oh maybe, right. And that made me think that sometimes it's through these conversations, right, that those of us that are stuck in that, you did say that generally most people are positive, but I think honestly speaking, there is still this group that doesn't think positively, unfortunately, and that's always going to be there. And we have to find ways of helping those that are not thinking this way to rethink where their position is.
Sure. So I actually don't consider myself overwhelmingly a positive thinker.
Okay.
Right. Me, I think the word you use is realist.
Yes, realist.
Right? So I embrace the possibility of failure. I'm not sure how things will work out, but I definitely think it's worth the try.
Trying, right? Yes, that's the key word.
Because I've got a very strong sense of purpose.
And that's what's pulling you, right?
Exactly.
To just keep trying.
Right. So when something happens in the business, and you're knocked down, right? You ask yourself the question, is it worth getting up?
Yeah.
So the question is, okay, well, why are you doing this in the first place?
Yes.
And if your motivation is to buy things that you don't need to impress people you don't really care about.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Which happens most of the time, right?
You may stay down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's inspiring about Ghana is because the challenges are so acute, right? That there's a sense of mission to the work that I do.
Right.
Right. If I was just building houses in Surrey, and the average house there is $500,000, and people aren't living on the streets, and I'm not really going to change the landscape, that motivation wouldn't inspire me.
No,
I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
Right. So yes, there's a deeper sense of purpose there, isn't there?
Of nation
building. Which is what is, driving, yes.
Making a contribution, of taking some of the resources that I have access to and finding ways to maximize them.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So there's that sense of purpose that motivates me.
And I guess, I think there's a general term that your why has to be big enough, isn't it? To make you want to just do whatever it takes.
That's it.
And not to give up.
Yeah,
so
once it's there, you actually, if the person, average intelligence and the right temperament, you just need to give them space.
Yes.
Because they're motivated. You're going to figure it out at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's not rocket science. We're not doing something that's earth-shattering. We're growing tomatoes, we're building homes.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do that, you can get a team of people that do and move forward.
Yeah. But do you think that, so now I'm looking at it from a systemic perspective, right? Do you think that we have systems, or maybe let's look at our education system, for instance. Do you have a perspective on whether you think our education system is helping our children, the young ones, to be conscious about how they are thinking?
In terms of the public education system,
yeah.
To be honest, I haven't engaged much with it.
No.
I homeschooled my kids for 6 years.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
okay.
And I think part of it was not just the education bit in terms of the academic side, but I wanted them to have a richer experience from the sport perspective,
right,
and also in the arts.
Okay. So you decided to take ownership of that and drive that yourself.
Yeah, because the schools that they were in, I found that not only did they take up a huge amount of time in their day, but then they were giving the kids a lot of busy work for homework.
Yes.
So I've got my child. I've picked him up from school. We've gone for a swim. Now I'd like to show them a documentary so that they can understand something about the world. And he's like, Papa, I need to do my homework, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble with my teacher.
Okay.
We were just there for 8 hours. Isn't that enough?
That's true.
Where am I going to have the opportunity to impart what I've learned, right? Or to have some conversations, or for you to develop other skills.
Right.
And so it just didn't make sense to me to keep them in there, given what I just wasn't. I wasn't overwhelmed with the quality of the education that they were receiving.
No, right.
So we
decided to just take that in-house in the family, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Actually, I do know of another couple of friends who also did something similar. They decided to homeschool their children, and it seems like they've benefited from that.
It's a lot of work.
Yes.
And you're right. I mean, there needs to be systems, because not every parent is in a position to do that.
Yes. Right.
So you need to have schools that you can ship them off to, where they've got a holistic experience. And particularly when I look at the mindset question we're coming back to.
Yes.
And the U.S.,
right.
And I was born and raised in the U.S. in Ohio.
Okay.
And I was thinking about just preparing for this conversation.
Yes.
That from a goal-setting perspective, from an achievement perspective.
Yeah.
Some of my earliest memories are playing youth development sports.
Right.
Right. In a little suburb in Ohio, where I'm competing, and all the parents in the neighborhood are there. Right? And you're on a relay team.
Right.
And I'm 6 years old. And I'm swimming.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And they're all cheering. And there's a reason to put the effort in, the practice, because you want to win the gold medal.
Yes.
At 6. Right. So there's a powerful relationship in the U.S. between that scholar-athlete tradition.
Yes.
Where
it's aspiration for greatness, isn't it, in the U.S. generally?
Absolutely. So I was actually disappointed when we moved to the U.K. And the kids who went to school
there. It's very different, isn't it?
They had a gesture of an athletic experience. So my son was on a basketball team, and for his high school. Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, Papa, the practices are twice a week." Like, how? In the States, it's 5 days a week you're in practice, and on the weekends you've got games.
Yes. Yes.
That's the experience.
Right.
It's holistic, and
it's helping to build you up, isn't it? So especially from a young age, it's helping you to think in a particular way.
Absolutely. And even now, for me, it's like, okay, maybe I've had a good day or a bad day. I can hit the gym, relieve some stress. Yeah. Right. But even then, you're setting some goals. You feel like you've achieved something. Yes. Right. I've got an uncle in the States who used to say, "Nothing succeeds like success." So even if it's a small success, right, you're able to do a few more pull-ups than you could do yesterday. Yes. Right. It just just walk a little bit taller. Yeah. Right. And then you can apply that same can-do spirit, energy, right, to your business. Right. Right. And do you think that young people in this country do have the opportunity to be able to
I think we were speaking about this earlier about sport, and how, from your observation, you have seen how, those that are in football, etc., show enthusiasm and, they want to be that premiership footballer, right, into the future. Do you see that generally in Ghana, from your observation?
So I don't think we're investing enough as a society. The football pitches that I was playing on as a mediocre kid in the States, our universities don't have access to those pitches. Right. So in terms of developing talent, but in terms of mindset and attitude, there's a huge amount of positivity that even without the support, that kids are finding a way to do what they love and express themselves and grow and taking ownership of, their football ambitions or engaging in sport. But we need to be more purposeful about creating and supporting. And it's, it's sport, it's the arts. There's just a huge amount of opportunity there. Yeah,
it's a good thing that you mentioned that, because for our kind of previous generation, usually they will be looking to certain, for kids to be aiming for specific professions. They want their kids to be an engineer or an accountant or a lawyer, something like this, right? As opposed to, I want to be a very successful musician or even artists. Do you think that the landscape is changing somewhat in that space, where more parents are becoming more open-minded on what their kids are aspiring to become?
Well, I would say this. The kids are sharp.
Yeah.
And they know
what they want.
Not so much what they want, but also that ChatGPT is going to be a far better accountant.
That's true, yeah.
Right? In a year.
It is, isn't it? It's
right?
Quite scary.
Yes. Right? You need a whole other set of
even
skills.
Lawyers too, by the way.
Lawyers, engineers, that long list of stable careers that made sense in our generation.
Right.
May not even be around at scale.
Right.
Right? You just might not need 10,000 engineers to run a country or 10,000 accountants. Right? That would just not be a requirement.
Yeah.
So I think the kids know. And also, just given the youth demographics on the continent, average age in Japan is 47. Average age in Italy, I think, is 49.
Right.
North America, 35. Average age in Africa, it's 19.
Yeah, it's probably the lowest, perhaps.
Yeah, but it's a huge outlier. Yeah. It's not just the lowest; it's significantly lower.
Yes,
significantly younger, more populous part of the world.
Yes.
Right, so you're seeing youth culture move to Accra, and in terms of like it being an epicenter of youth culture, Accra, Lagos, right? That is a huge amount of cultural capital that just comes from having lots of kids.
Yes.
Right? So we're very intensely creative and always have been, even without the support.
Right. Yes, even without the support. And I think it maybe, and the other thing as well is that because the support is not there, our younger Africans are probably a bit more ambitious because they know that the support is not there, so they have to just make something happen themselves, themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which in a way is a good thing, isn't it?
Sure.
It helps you to become less complacent about, striving for your goals.
It's a mix, right? Because you need some support in order to develop, right? I mean, you look at somebody like Adele.
Yes.
Right? The number, there's a school in the UK, I think it's called Brit or something like that.
Yeah.
That Adele went to, and Amy Winehouse, and a bunch of these.
Yeah.
Right. So where they're able to cultivate their talent. Right. So on one end, it's helpful to have support. On the other end, you've got these scrappy, plucky kids who kind of do things on their own.
Yes.
Right. Without any support.
Yeah.
So you kind of need both.
Yes. That's true. Yeah.
It's a bit of a mix, but I think that the difference that we're seeing now is that these things that used to be considered distractions are now being viewed as industries because there's so much money involved.
Okay.
Right? That you may not be interested in your son being a musician, but there's no CEO in Ghana who wouldn't want Burner Boy
to
mention, just not even to, be a brand ambassador, but just to mention their company.
Right.
Right? Like, you want that. Right? So you're seeing this connection.
And Afrobeat is the fastest growing music genre globally. Yes, yeah. I think Spotify gave some astronomical numbers in terms of the increase in Afrobeat music on the platform. Is really amazing. Yeah. So you're right. There's music, and we go to all the different functions, and we'll be happily dancing away to to all the different musicians, right?
Sure.
So it kind of makes sense if we are recognizing the contribution that they are bringing in. So we'll go and enjoy the music, but not necessarily have our kid become one of them. Which is kind of interesting, isn't it?
I think it's an important skill, whether you become a global star or not. Right? There's an artistic sensibility.
Yes.
That you develop when you have a serious musical education. So that's what was important for us as parents to invest in that, because you understand that sometimes something very small can make a big difference. Right, that's kind of an artistic sensibility.
It is, isn't it? Yes.
That you bring to there. If you're talking about Ayi Mensah Park, when you have highly qualified, competent consultants and architects who are doing their job properly, you won't even understand why some of the design decisions they've made make you feel good.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to cost more money.
No.
Right. You're literally just paying for somebody's expertise.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. The way they orient their buildings. Right. Whether it's to minimize the sun exposure. Right. And doing solar tracking when they're designing. So all these things impact.
Yes.
You don't quite, as someone who's just bought a house, you're not quite sure why it is you love it, but there's something you love about it.
Yes.
Right. Well, there are people that have been trained, and so those kind of artistic sensibilities I think are important.
Yeah, important. Yeah. Let's talk about your way of thinking, Kofi, so that our listeners might learn something from it. What kind of mindset or thinking did you embrace for you to become successful in your area of work?
Well, I'm always looking for the next challenge. So even I don't look at myself as a raging success. Once I've built 200 houses, I'm trying to build another 2,000. So for me, I feel like we're just getting started.
Right.
But I see opportunity, and I think that with the right, as humans, we're a collaborative species. So if we can get the right people together, then we can solve problems.
Yes.
And with real estate development, you're looking at a ton of different professions that you actually have to pull together and orchestrate. You're talking about engineering, architecture, finance.
Even lawyers, I guess. Yeah.
There's a legal component, particularly in this part of the world when it comes to land and land administration, marketing.
Yes.
So all of these things come together. But there are opportunities.
Yeah. So it's a case of thinking broadly as well, isn't it? About and recognizing that you won't have all the answers, and so you bring in the right people that have those answers, and then you kind of try to bring it all together. But what kind of challenges do you think you came across? And having the mindset that you had, or you still have, of course, help you to overcome those challenges? Because I'm sure you encountered some challenges.
Sure. So I think a lot of it just kind of born of experience, right? Where your perspective improves with time.
Yeah.
And then your ability to attract the right partners because you're bringing more to the table. Right. So when we started out, my father invested in a lot of land in and around Accra, but nobody had any actual hands-on experience building.
Yes.
Right. Our family had invested heavily in real estate in the U.S. Right. So you end up having to kiss a lot of frogs, right? And end up
worse off.
Not quite knowing, but you're learning.
Yeah.
Right. So you learn through those experiences and you iterate.
Right.
And then the other part, it's not necessarily having the answers, but being able to engage that third component is really the market.
Right.
What do people want?
Mm.
Right. So you're making trade-offs as developers, right, on the land size versus the floor area of the house. You need to save something here. You need to invest a bit more there. What are the non-negotiables?
Yes.
Right? Can you sell a kitchen to a Ghanaian family without a storeroom? Right? Does it need access to the backyard?
Right.
So these are questions that you have ideas,
right?
But until you're actually in the market getting feedback, that refines. I think in terms of mindset, it's also you need to have a listening perspective, and engage with the market and get feedback and then refine your product. Yeah,
they're talking about customer centricity, I guess, isn't it? And that's quite important, isn't it? Whatever you're offering, understanding who your customer is and what their needs are.
Exactly.
And I guess you can go even further with knowing something that they would want that they don't even know yet.
That's it. No, it's what you're talking about is absolutely right? Because you were talking about the park. Well, I can't give you a 2-acre park.
Yeah.
If you ask folks in Ghana what they want, so they want a house on a plot that's 100 by 80.
Yes.
All right. Well, I can't get you that.
Okay.
Right, and build a 3-bedroom house and give you a 2-acre park,
right,
and have everything under $160,000.
Yes, it's not realistic, right? Yes.
So there's going to be trade-offs.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question is, can we use design to make the community very attractive, but shrink the size of the land significantly?
Yes.
Right. For you to be comfortable with that trade-off.
Right. And it has proven to be successful, I'm guessing, because which means that's offering something that they haven't specifically asked for, but they have actually realized that they like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
So yeah. So that's a good way to look at it. And from a let's look at it from a culture perspective, because culture is quite important, isn't it? What elements of our culture do you think could make it challenging for us to embrace a positive mindset, do you think?
I'm actually going to look at that the other way around. I think that our culture is actually...
Because I guess there could be positives. And yes.
I mean, when I look at the U.S., I've lived in the U.S. It's the wealthiest country in history.
Yes.
So they're doing some things right. But I think the mistake would be to assume that Ghana needs to learn from everybody else.
And this is true, yes.
Right? Yeah. And I think that there are a lot of features of our culture that are world-class.
I guess, I fully agree. Absolutely. Right. That we want to retain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Things are challenging here, but we do a better job of looking after each other.
Yes.
And you can see that from a mental health perspective.
Yes, I think I was giving you an example about traveling on the tube in London, right? You can't look at someone. You can't look at someone in their face for a few seconds, right? They start to think, what's wrong with him?
Sure, of course, unless of course they're an African, and then they'll greet you, and then you'll greet them.
Right. Yes.
Right? But it's only the two of you on the whole train. Everybody else has got their noise canceling earphones on, and looking at a screen. Right, and then feeling like that they need connection. Right, the whole thing is backward.
It is.
Right here, there is so much social engagement.
Yeah, I still love the banter on the trotros. By the way, the conversations on the trotros are amazing. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah,
there's a humanity to your experience of living and working in Ghana.
Yeah.
Right, which for me, because that is actually the core. Right. Whereas I think in the West, a lot of it's level setting, and there's a pecking order. And here, you can work on your business. And I've had time to develop it over 20 years.
Yeah.
Right. But I could go 2 years without making much significant progress.
True.
Right. But the core of that experience is still pleasant because I've got an incredible community that I'm a part of.
Yes.
That doesn't really care whether I bought a new car or not. Right? They just want you to show up to to Auntie Ajwa's birthday,
right?
And the fact that you're there is fine. Like that's the point. It's like, okay, we're all here together. We've survived, right? It's challenging. We're here to celebrate. Another spin around the sun.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So it's you see that, and it's okay. Well, we're all going to come together for an outdooring. Somebody had a child. The whole community, the family, they're there. Yeah. Right. There's the 1 year commemoration of if you lost an important member of the family, and you're commemorating that. The whole family comes together. Yeah. Right. Like these are cultural elements which I think are so powerful. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think resilience also. As we discussed, there's a lot more challenges, here in Ghana compared to other Western countries. But young people are still finding ways to survive. And that speaks to a degree of resilience and perhaps adaptability. I think we are probably, Africa perhaps is the global leader when it comes to pragmatism. Anything can work. We'll find a way. Yeah, we'll find a way. So I think there is, as you say, different elements of our culture, which is definitely positive for us. But I was trying to get us to challenge ourselves to think about any opportunities where we can improve. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily negative, but maybe we could be conscious of that and finding, ways of coming together and recognizing that, okay, this element of our culture is maybe we could be doing slightly better than we are today. Sure. I mean, my focus is usually very pedestrian. Okay. Right? Where I'm not sure that the levers are so adaptable that you can just take an element of your culture and dial it down, or crank it up as a society. Yes. Right? Like I think there's some, maybe we should say, okay, well, can we become more food independent? Yeah. Right? Let's start with that. Yes. Right? Where we just can identify a problem. And then figure out an approach and a strategy and put resources toward it. Yeah. So for me, I just like to work on very incremental. Again, I think the word you use, pragmatic. Yes. Yes. But I think from a positivity perspective, when I think about what I'm genuinely optimistic about, is that when I think about the continent and the power of the diaspora. Yes, that's true. Right, the fact that you've got 50 million people of African descent who are increasingly interested in Africa. Yeah. And 1.3 billion people that own a continent. Yes. Right, when you connect that with the diaspora in the UK and in Europe. Right. And then you've got these black countries in the Caribbean, which are 90 miles off, 90 miles off the coast of Florida. That now through technology we're connecting. Right. And there's there's a number of collaboration initiatives, isn't there, between Africa and some West Indian countries even, I hear. So it's picking up. And even from your industry with the podcasts, people are watching Watermaya moving through South America and the Caribbean. Right, and just showing the cultural connections that we have. Yes. He's doing amazing work, isn't he? Bridging, sort of finding the synergies and what have you. I mean, it's happening. I've got friends who are developers. I've got a buddy of mine who's a developer from Suriname. Okay. He's developing property in Ghana. Okay. And people from Suriname are following his story and supporting and buying property here. Yeah. So these things are kind of connecting. Right. But it's powerful. Yeah. That's really inspiring. At least it's putting Ghana on the international stage as well, isn't it? We're at the center. Having I mean, I'm telling you, as somebody who is also an American, Canadian, like the Ghana story is central. Right. The fact that it was the first country. It's, if you're a Black American, this is where you're most at home because it's English speaking and it's the closest right? And you've got the slave castle experiences on the coast. That this is where people are drawn to.
Yes.
Like obviously people spend time in Senegambia and in Kenya and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the majority of interest in the North American diaspora, the epicenter of that interest is Ghana.
Is Ghana, yes, because of the slave trade, etc. The links there, right? Yeah. I guess, yeah, because when Obama made his trip to Kenya, that was quite a big thing too. So, so what do you think for our young listeners, Kofi? What general advice would you give them with trying to, what are the practical steps that they can take to really show that they are embracing a growth mindset, which can then lead them to success? What do you think those practical steps can look like?
I think the key really is to embrace purpose.
Okay, so
I think that the success kind of.
Sorry to cut you, Kofi. I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is this kind of general thinking that a large group of our young Africans also want success in an instant. I think it's called the microwave mindset. Okay, so I don't know whether whether you have any thoughts on that, by the way, because that's also worth mentioning, because some do want to have success immediately and not prepared to go through the journey as you've been describing it. So you might have something to say to that for our listeners.
Tell me more about the microwave mindset.
So this is where some young Africans are maybe following social media and they are seeing some sort of success stories or whatever, right? And that's how it's being portrayed, perhaps, on social media. So they are thinking that they can do the same thing and just become rich overnight.
Sure. So I think there's a lot to unpack there, right? I would first start with even this notion of success.
Okay.
Right, that if you're looking from a social media perspective,
right,
what you think is success is probably not success.
Okay, yep.
Right, that the guy, and there's a brilliant book called The Millionaire Next Door.
Oh, really? The Millionaire Next Door? I haven't seen this yet.
Right. So this was a kind of a longitudinal study on American millionaires, and they found out that a lot of our assumptions about what wealthy people look like, are wrong.
True. Right.
Right.
Yep.
That it's typically not the person with a $100,000 sports car that's actually a millionaire.
Right.
That the person with a $100,000 sports car is maybe swimming in debt.
Yes. True. Yep.
Right. Yep. And it's had a failed marriage and it's on the verge of bankruptcy. Right. And they're investing in depreciating assets.
Yes. Right.
Right. So my caution to anybody is, that's something I've never done. For me, if we've got, some dividends coming from a real estate development, I'm interested in trying to put it into more development. Like I've never even bought a new car.
Right. Well, that's so inspiring.
It's just not the focus.
Right. Because that's the very thing we do, by the way. As soon as we get cash, let's go get that BMW.
It's
Mercedes or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. But
so that's good advice.
Yeah. So I think you really have to be critical that a social media millionaire and a real millionaire are not the same thing.
Different. Yeah.
Right. But I think more importantly, that from my perspective, that's the point isn't necessarily to build enough wealth so you can buy a $100,000 car. The point is to have impact. Right, that it's far more gratifying.
Yes. Right.
To know that, a friend of mine who's built a phenomenally large company, and his mantra is very simple. It's like, do something you like with the people you love. Right? And he's an entrepreneur, and he's put, tens of thousands of people to work.
So what you're saying there is we want to be careful about what our definition of success is.
That's the one.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Because I think for now, some of our young people are thinking about making a lot of money, and that's their definition of success. But from what you are explaining, the definition of success wants to be about what can I do that will impact society in a positive way, as a starting point.
It's a subtle distinction, right? Yes. And I'm not one of these people who, I'm not anti-money.
Yes, of course. No, of course.
Make as much money as you can.
Yeah.
I'm saying don't confuse consumption.
Yes.
Right? Making money is about being productive.
Mm-hmm.
So I support that 100%.
Yes.
Make a ton of money if you can. Yeah. And if you've got some way to do it quickly and a microwave mindset, let me know. Right? Okay, but the point I'm making is on the consumption side.
Yes.
Right? That particularly in this environment, like it's odd in my view.
Yeah.
Right? To want to celebrate your own success with a bunch of imported toys.
Yeah.
Right? When the need is so acute.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So for our young listeners, the key message there is just really think through about what success means for you. And secondly, don't get too carried away with what you see on social media. Right. Be careful about how
you're likely being lied to.
Yes. Right. Right. Yeah. Because I think this is a big challenge for our young Africans. But have a sense of purpose. This is the number one target there.
Yeah. I think that's what bulletproofs your mindset. Is when your mission is so compelling to you.
Yeah.
That you will stop at nothing to achieve it.
Yeah.
Then by definition, nothing can get in your way.
Having that big why, basically, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it transforms how you attend to the world. Because you literally now see the world in terms of obstacles and support.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Because you know what you're trying to achieve.
Yes. Excellent. It's been wonderful, Kofi, having you on this first episode.
I enjoyed the chat.
Likewise, yeah. The feeling is mutual. Lots and lots of advice there. From someone who's built, come all the way from the US to Ghana, and created something quite impactful. Creating shelter, actually. Shelter is quite a basic necessity, and making it affordable for a lot of Ghanaians. So that's definitely commendable. And please continue to connect those dots. You're doing quite well in that space.
Thank you.
Really, really appreciate it. Okay, so our listeners, hopefully you've enjoyed this first episode, Mindset Matters. We will look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to you joining us for the next episode. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels, along with our social media platforms, for any new offerings and engagements with you as listeners. We look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you.